With getting their horses into water is they think of it as a task. And so they usually either are on the horse or they're on the ground saying the horse must go into the water by itself. So essentially what you're saying is, I'm too scared to get myself in the water, but I want you to go to get yourself into dangerous water. So the easiest, simplest way to get horses happy about going into water is dress appropriately, not leather boots, but something I usually use reef walkers. Walk into the water and splash and play and have fun. Keep them on a loose rein so that you're not pulling, there's no pressure on them, and you just stay there playing until the horse says, well, that looks like more fun than standing here, and they join you. And it works 100% of the time.
So really the ideal thing to do is to do it on the ground first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I can do it on a horseback because I pony. I used to use Sandor, Jenny Sandor, and I would, Sandor would walk into the pond. I'd have a 12-foot lead line, so the horses behind me, they'd get to the end of the pond and they'd say, I'm not moving. And Sandor would go in so that there was still slack in the line, and then he'd put his nose down, he'd get a drink, he'd splash a little, and then he'd cock a hoof and he'd go to sleep. And then he'd sort of wake up periodically and look at the horse standing on the edge of the pond and say, are you ready yet? No? Okay, go back to sleep. And then eventually the horse would say, well, maybe I'm kind of thirsty, and she'd put her nose down and take a little sip, and then Sandra would take another step or two, no more, and then, splash again, drink again, and look back and say, are you ready to join me? And eventually the horse would walk in and, get a splash, get a drink, and then Sandor would amble them through the rest of the pond.
Wonderful.
So he was in charge.
Right.
He was the one that knew when the horse was ready to take the next step, and he was a great teacher. He really was. He was a wonderful teacher.
Thank you.
Robin Keaton, my friend up in Willamette Valley, her mare Reba adores splashing in ponds. She just has more fun. And if you are riding her when she's in water, you will get soaking wet. I mean, every single time. And so
it's about having fun.
She adores it. I mean, and she'll splash and splash, splash until she's soaking wet. Then she goes up in the pasture. She rolls, gets up, and goes and does it again.
It's her idea of a good time right now. So why don't you go in the water, not the mud?
You notice I'm backing away.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you'd like to do that, Reba. And you see, this way Mom doesn't have to be within the splash zone. If we back far enough away. She said, I'm going to find someplace green to drop in the wall. Oh, she says that feels so good. Really good.
And you got a nice round back like mine, you can roll right over.
Yeah. But Robin got a pony horse cross, Willie, who's a little guy. And so Reba went in there and she splashed for 7-8 minutes. And Willie was standing on the side of the edge of the pond, sort of mom splashing. Not really his mom, but surrogate mom, right? Because he was 9 months old and she was 15 years old. And so, he looked at her that way. And eventually he said, well, okay, this is boring. And so he went in and he started splashing and splashed and splashed and splashed and had a drink. And then he went further than Reba did. He went for a swim in the pond.
Wow.
He actually went up to here, and where he got to the point where he couldn't touch his feet, and he was actually swimming in the pond.
Wow.
And that's because Mom told him it was fun. And so he had no fear of it whatsoever because nobody ever put pressure on him to go in. It was just, this is where you have fun.
Thank you.
Because you get to see his face. Well done, Willie. Awesome, puppy. Willie, you're so brave. First time in the surf.
I make myself one. You want to do another circle left? Good girl. Awesome circle left. That's just plain blue. And the circle right.